Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of All Access AM. I am Billy Embody. Happy Monday. Hope you guys had a nice, relaxing weekend watching ACC football, seeing everybody take care of business, and continue on the path to maybe getting multiple bids into the college football playoff. Wrong. Chaos. The ACC doesn't take care of business. And here we are talking about how the ACC is going to be fighting for its life to get two bids into the college football playoff. We'll break down what is a wild week to look back on in ACC play across this show. We'll be joined in a little bit by Hayden Howerton, who covers SMU, as the Mustangs are squarely in the mix of the ACC Championship race. They beat the brakes off of Boston College this weekend. We'll talk SMU for a little bit, but really talk about all of the chaos across the ACC. And we'll end with a little bit of basketball talk, kind of dipping our toe into the water after the first couple of games. Nothing crazy. Some injuries popped up, a big return in the conference, and we preview a huge matchup on Tuesday night as well as Kentucky faces Louisville. So lots to get to on the show. Let's jump right in here. Like I mentioned, we'll talk more SMU Boston College with Hayden Howerton later in the show. But before we jump into breaking down this entire league slate of games and action, do want to remind you guys we're proud to be presented by our friends at Security National Bank. Security National Bank, a family-owned bank business, third generation of family leadership, can help you hit all your financial goals, whether it be personally or for your business. I encourage you to reach out to them, securitynational.bank, to hear more about what they can help you with, again, in your personal life or your business side of things. For general questions, you can call 402-344-7300, Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So great opportunity for you to learn more about how Security National Bank can help you reach your financial goals, especially right now. Maybe you get it teed up for 2026 and have the conversation with them. So we appreciate them supporting All Access AM. Where to begin? I really want to begin with some overall thoughts on the league, because this league just could not find a way to really help itself when you had a group of teams that were certainly in position to make a run to the college football playoff. You had some opportunities to go ahead and find a way to reach those goals. And the two top teams in the college football playoff rankings, Virginia and Louisville, lose. And it's for two different reasons. And both are tied to injury, truthfully, in my opinion. You've got Virginia, who loses Chandler Morris. Just feel for him. You wish that you could factor it in a little bit more, like maybe college basketball does or tries to, but it's just not going to be talked about by this committee. Chandler Morris plays that game. You got to believe that Virginia takes care of business against Wake Forest and just gets enough offense to win that game. Wake Forest has played really well on defense. They've been helped a little bit by their schedule. There's no doubt in my mind, at least. And I'm not trying to take away from them, but that is the reality of their schedule. It's also the reality of Virginia's schedule and why they're here in the first place. And Virginia goes out and you can't overcome that and falls 16-9 at home. And so all of a sudden, we've got a group, once again, of one-loss teams sitting there vying for this ACC championship race, and UVA just couldn't complete the comeback, couldn't tie the game, and you feel for the Hoos, because they had everything in front of them. They could have won out and gotten to Charlotte and made it happen. Now we'll see what happens with Chandler Morris and kind of what's next for him and for Virginia. But they close with Duke, and then they get a bye, and then they face Virginia Tech. So they've got to go on the road, and I am just not sold that Virginia is going to beat Duke. I could tell you that. I'm probably going to ride with the Blue Devils this weekend unless Chandler Morse can play, and then I've got to really figure things out. But in that game, Wake Forest defense, they continue to step up despite, again, you can't really judge this one wholly because Chandler Morse did exit the game, but it was enough to get the win, and that's all that matters for this league right now. And that's why it is so disheartening that you're in positions as teams in this conference where, unless you're Pitt, where you're going to play Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, and Miami, you really don't see too many opportunities to kind of close this out and finish safely into the top 10. Although I think Georgia Tech could very well have that type of an opportunity as well with what they have left in front of them, especially with Pitt and Georgia on the schedule for them. They could play at Boston College this weekend, but Virginia goes into this one fully, I think, expecting to take care of business here, even though Wake Forest has played a lot of people hard. But you can't let teams hang around, and you've got to find ways to make plays in this time of year. So really unfortunate for Virginia. They had won 7 straight going into this one, but weren't able to get it done. And you look back on all the times they've played with fire over the course of this season, and it's kind of surprising that they've gotten to this point. But it's now even worse. When they played with fire and they needed a safety to beat Washington State a few weeks back, you kind of thought, okay, well, at least that would have been non-conference. Maybe that would have been a wake-up call. But Virginia only got 327 total yards. Wake Forest, their offense is abysmal, and they really just, I don't know how they do it. I really don't. And they just find a way in these low-scoring games to make plays that win. SMU learned that. And, man, SMU is doing its best to control what it can control right now. But, man, that loss is looming large for them last 2 weeks ago at Wake Forest. Otherwise, they're sitting atop the standings in this conference with just 2 losses on the year, which is not as bad, of course, as that really tough 3-loss territory. So Virginia losing that game really just turned over everything in this league as far as the conference championship race. But, oh, by the way, this league wasn't done Saturday night as Cal shocked Louisville. This is one where going into the game you're not going to have Isaac Brown, but I still think we're seeing a big indictment on Miller Moss's ability to kind of carry this thing for the Cardinals. And he's a great kid and has played well enough to have them at 7-2 overall, now 4-2 in the ACC. But with Sagapatelli, that game-winning 3-yard touchdown pass in overtime, they were able to get the win 29-26. A really just tough deal for Louisville at home. So you have 2 home teams that are ranked in the top 15 go down for the ACC as well. So just not a good situation. You've got to give Cal a lot of credit. Sagapatelli, 30 of 47, 323 yards, 2 touchdowns. Miller Moss only threw 200 for 203 yards on the night. Had an interception, 5.3 yards per pass. Just not good enough. Just not what Jeff Brom and company need from him. And on a night when you had a run game with Kewan Brown running 14 times for 136 yards, you're running for 9.7 yards per carry with your starting running back, and you throw an interception and you just don't bring anything to the table, even with that high-powered receiving core. That's unfortunate for Louisville. And it's been my concern with Louisville watching them play is Miller Moss and when he has to do it all himself. That Miami game a couple weeks ago when they get the win and it, obviously catapulted them up into the first college football playoff ranking, up into the AP and all of these things. That game is a Jeff Brom special as far as being ready to make plays and get those wins against these top 10 teams. But Carson Beck threw 4 interceptions. It wasn't like a legacy game of Miller Moss. He was able to take care of the football well enough, but it wasn't like he went out there and really dominated. And he really hasn't shown what a lot of people nationally before this season thought they were going to see. I wasn't as high on Miller Moss. I think one thing that I like to do, you're in the media, you work all day, either cover a noon kick or an 11 a.m. kick, and then you get probably wrapped up with your day by those evening games. So I usually get to watch a lot of the evening games, but nothing really better than the old school West Coast, Pac-12 after dark time slots. And so I watched a good bit of Miller Moss last year. I just wasn't high on what he was going to bring to Louisville, and said that throughout the offseason. And so he's not a bad player. He is just not Tyler Shook. Tyler Shook with this Louisville team would probably have them undefeated, is my guess. So it's a tough loss for Louisville. It's really tough for the conference because this is a team in Louisville that has so much talent. Even with Isaac Brown being down, you saw what Kewan Brown could do. Duke Watson, kind of helped a little bit there. But Colin Lacey, Chris Bell, those guys are really, really explosive players. But they also need a little bit more help from their quarterback to make them explosive. The defense, I thought, played well enough. 23 points in regulation for Cal. It's a pretty good night for a defense, regardless of what you thought of Cal going in. They're now 3-3 in league play. They're 6-4. They're going bowling. The ACC could have a bunch of teams playing for bowls the way things are going as far as them beating up on each other. So this was a really gritty win for Cal. They deserve a ton of credit. Kendrick Raphael, 19 carries, 83 yards, touchdown, solid day for him. Jacob DeJesus, 16 receptions, 158 yards, a touchdown, including the game winner. And they were just able to find a way. And that's what it's all about this time of year. They win the turnover battle 1-0, and that helps too. So Cal, to close out their regular season, they have a slate of Stanford and then SMU. I think they are on a bye now. Yes, they are. And then they host SMU to close things out. So they don't leave the West Coast for the rest of the year. And then Louisville gets to head over to or host Clemson this weekend in a night game on ESPN, and then heads to SMU and then hosts Kentucky. So a tough slate of rosters as far as what Louisville has to face, and that's concerning for their end of the season. If Louisville was able to get past Cal, I felt like that would kind of springboard them into maybe you can get past Clemson, because everybody kind of seems to these days, out unless your name's Florida State. More on that in a moment. But then you get into SMU and you're thinking, okay, that one could be pretty competitive. It was competitive last year. SMU has kind of been up and down a little bit, but now you're looking at what's unfolded over the last 2 weeks, and you're thinking, okay, SMU's playing at a higher level as of late. Louisville now licking its wounds after a loss, trying to figure out what life without Isaac Brown is going to be like. And it's hard to see a picture perfect finish to this season. It's there, but it still might not get them to Charlotte. And so that's where you almost have to start. If you're an ACC fan, you have to start saying, okay, well, you need SMU to win. You need Louisville to just beat Clemson. You need Louisville to beat Kentucky, but you need an SMU to win, take care of business, keep in that race of being, an ACC championship team that can go and play. As far as just kind of keeping it clean. I think as teams kind of beat each other up, it's only going to get uglier for the ACC, and just not in a good situation overall. So let's get to Miami-Syracuse. Miami-Syracuse, a game that very similar to the Stanford game as far as a super low opponent, but Miami was able to get up 14-0 and then cruise from there 38-10. Really impressed with their ability to respond after tough losses. I think that's something that's becoming really impressive about them. as far as what they're able to do. Now, they're still in the same spot that they seem to be every December or every November, which is chasing and not playing from ahead on an ACC championship type of position. But I know last year they blew it in the final week to get there, but it really is a Miami thing right now where they have not gotten past their inability to get to Charlotte when they have teams that absolutely should be. So they need some help. They're 7-2, and they're in position to maybe make it, but they need a lot of help, including SMU losing, I think, 2 more times, I guess, right off the bat, right? So you've got NC State this weekend at home, and then you go at Virginia Tech and at Pitt. 2 tricky games to finish out the season with, and we'll see how those go for them. But Carson Beck, efficient night for him, 18 of 24, 247 yards, a touchdown. Ricky Collins and Joseph Filardi for Syracuse combined for 124 yards. This one got interesting because Fran Brown and Mario Cristobal got into it at midfield. It's really quite the storyline out of this one, and they just really don't seem to have much. They're not going to be exchanging Christmas cards. Let's just say that. Here are a couple of the clips or whatever that you can kind of see, and they're just going at it. And these are 2 guys that are not going to back down. If you're watching on YouTube on our channel, we appreciate you guys doing that. But these 2 are just not going to be exchanging Christmas cards anytime soon overall. And I'll be interested to see how this one goes as far as these two coaches continuing to maybe this. Having obviously some better plays on the field that maybe they could have made. With Steve Angeli, I think is one that he really felt good about, and then that was starting to be proven right. And then the injury to him is just brutal, and it has completely cost that team any sort of ability to be competitive. But Fran Brown will have them back. They're just going to have to go through the rest of the season, and maybe they build some momentum for the offseason or something. But 3-7 overall, 1-6 in the ACC, and on the flip side, Miami, it takes care of business and they move on. So I don't know if you'll see the committee, make a major change here. I'll be intrigued to see if we do see something like that, because you see it in the AP, you see it in not as much the coaches poll, but the AP top 25, you see, teams kind of get re-ranked weirdly at times over the course of the season, and teams that come off of bye weeks that get moved up, and teams that get, this or that. And it's just because AP voters just think differently about this. But Georgia Tech moves up to 14, 2 spots. Miami up 2 spots to 16. Louisville dropped 5 spots. Virginia drops 8 spots. So think about that. Louisville lost Isaac Brown. Virginia loses Chandler Morris for the game. And the drop between those 2 is incredibly interesting to see that play out right there in this top 25. And then you have Pittsburgh, which was not ranked last week in the AP. They were ranked in the college football playoff, but they move into 23, and they did not play last week. So we've seen some shifting. Tulane dropped out. They're receiving votes. SMU's receiving votes. And that's it as far as the ACC goes. But you look at this top 25 from the AP, and the next round of college football playoff rankings comes out Tuesday night. Georgia Tech has an opportunity to move into the top 10 because Texas and Oklahoma have quite the slate to finish out the rest of the season. And so we're going to learn a lot about them and where their seasons end up heading. And BYU is another one that also plays TCU down the stretch. So TCU's really been down. If they can get a win against BYU, that would drop them. Then BYU plays Cincinnati as well. So there's a lot more that BYU can show, but there's also a lot of risk there too. So there's a world where, in a couple weeks, we could see a Georgia Tech moved up into the top 10, because if Georgia Tech gets, past Boston College, obviously, but then gets past Pitt, and can take care of business against Georgia, which is a tall ask on the Georgia piece, but at least going into that final game of the regular season, Georgia Tech would love to be in position to get, obviously, a win over Georgia, really cement itself up into maybe that top 8 if they can win out. I think that's kind of where Georgia Tech could be heading if they can do all those things. Again, that's a heavy lift that, could go. They could go 0-2. They could go 2-0. It is a really, really difficult ask in those final 2 games, but they do get back to action and maybe, wipe away some of the bad taste in their mouth around the loss to NC State. They were on a bye this week, and they can get back onto the field and take care of business against Boston College this weekend. That's what I would expect to happen. I don't think that BC team ever. Somebody made a good point to me after the BC game. BC gave everything to beating Notre Dame, and they played really hard. And BC plays really hard. After watching them in person, I don't necessarily think BC is this team that is folding in folding it up and calling it quits on Bill O'Brien. I think they're beat up. I was talking to some BC people. They're beat up football team. They obviously have struggled at the quarterback position. They need some resources. They kind of need a little bit of a jolt like Virginia got last year. I don't know if they'll let Bill O'Brien go over this because he's just starting to build, but it was pretty ugly. I know there's frustration up there, but I think with a guy like him, maybe you give it another year. And I say this as somebody who isn't necessarily the biggest Bill O'Brien believer, but I think their baseline roster is in a good spot long term to be a little bit more competitive than they are. I think they've just misevaluated the quarterback position, and ultimately somebody has to wear that. I get it, but between Dylan Lonergan and Grayson James, it's just not good enough, and they've got to find a way to get some elite receiving talent around them as well, so they can actually be explosive, because their run game is not bad overall, but they struggle with consistency because everybody knows they can't really do much throwing the football. So anyway, that Georgia Tech gets to play Boston College this weekend. So again, SMU takes care of business against Boston College 45-13. A couple of quick takeaways before Hayden Howerton joins us in a little bit. I think SMU's defense this is not a game that you could circle and say, wow, SMU went out there and dominated Boston College defensively, because they did give up some yards, but they are taking away the football. They are sacking the quarterback. They are making disruptive plays that makes it really difficult on opposing offenses, and they've been doing that for a minute now. Most of ACC play, they've been very good on defense as far as forcing turnovers. I think they're the best in the country at forced turnovers, and then sacks and kind of disruptive plays and things like that. So they're at a really good spot. They might be one of the best defenses in the ACC as far as points allowed. So that's, obviously you can give up a bunch of yards, but if you don't give up points, that's great. If you're, looking to have a successful defense, but overall, SMU this is exactly what they needed, coming off the big emotional Miami win that everyone was patting them on your back, and they were able to get it done. Kevin Jennings, 326 yards passing there. Boston College, Dylan Lonergan eventually took over for Grayson James. He got the bulk of the work here and was just battered, beaten, bruised, all of the things, getting sacked numerous times. He completed 25-37 for 232 yards, touchdown, interception. Shakir Rising, their walk-on through a late interception that an SMU freshman, Sael Reyes, intercepted. Grayson James was 0 for 2 as a starter, and they pulled him pretty quickly and rode with Dylan Lonergan the rest of the way. But BC just not not there right now as a whole this season. Let's talk about maybe the most disappointing loss of the weekend. Duke losing at Connecticut 37-34. A fumble recovery clinches UConn's come from behind win. This was dramatic. This was a fourth quarter to forget for Duke. 14-6. UConn wins the fourth, and they're able to give Jim Mora Jr. a huge win here. And for the ACC, man, this is the one that stinks. Because not only does Duke lose, and they're 5-4 now on the year, they're 3-2 in the league, or they're 4-1 in conference. Sorry, they 4-1 in conference. They just don't help the ACC at all. Look at their performance in their non-conference games. They opened the season, they beat Elon 45-17. Great, awesome. I could be wrong here. I think that game was close in the first half. Illinois loss. You get destroyed. Tulane on the road to the team that you grabbed the quarterback from, Darian Mensah. You lose. And I think he threw a couple picks in that game. And then you go on the road at UConn and lose. Manny Diaz is building a program. And it is going to take a minute still over there to get it how he wants it. But these are the types of games that this year with this team you can't have. And if Duke finds a way to sneak into the ACC Championship and win it, it's going to just, I mean, somebody made a good point. I don't think it would happen, but man, there's a real chance that the ACC would get, left out, the conference champion, which would be wild. And so this game was so frustrating to watch it unfold and see it happen. They get to play host to Virginia. They get a chance to bounce back. 2:30 ESPN2 on Saturday, and then they go at North Carolina and then host Wake Forest. Duke would do the ACC a huge favor now in losing some of those games and kind of getting out of the conference championship race. I don't know kind of what's next for Duke as far as kind of getting, I mean, you have everything to play for, but it really is just one of those damning losses. UConn 7-3, kudos to them. They're unbeaten at home. They've done a really nice job there, and I'm not going to spend too much time on them because they're not in this league. But when you see that type of a game unfold, when everyone and friend of the show Eric McLean was talking about all the things the ACC gets slammed for, this is the stuff that it just gives people more ammunition. And the league has to do a better job of fighting against this. But you also, how do you, when things like this happen, when you see Duke lose to a UConn, right off the bat, somebody's like, didn't UConn almost drop football? Aren't they in the Big East? Or, oh no, they're independent. That's right. Those are the type of things that you get dragged for. And when you see Duke do this, when you see some of the other beating up on each other, that's competition. I'm good with that in the league. Obviously, it helps out a lot when you have a cream of the crop rise. And I thought this year we would see that. I thought we'd see a Miami or a Georgia Tech do that. Now, Georgia Tech really does have that opportunity ahead of them. Their proving ground is those final two games of their regular season. But for Duke, they've kind of lost that now. They have a chance to beat Virginia, and then that's it. But outside of that, it really isn't a big deal what Duke does. They've already made their bed. They're 5-4 on the year. So it's brutal. Darian Mensah stripped of the football late in this one, and it sealed the win for UConn. So for the game, Darian Mensah finishes 22 of 31, 222 yards, 3 touchdowns. Here it is, 2 interceptions, plus the fumble. On the flip side, UConn's quarterback, Joe Fagnano, 27 of 39, 311 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Manny Diaz's teams have really struggled with turnovers in critical games, and it cost them dearly in this one. So really tough one for Duke there. And look, it's a non-conference loss. It hurts the league a lot in a way, but they've got a chance to get to Charlotte. Maybe they will, but a really disappointing loss on the road for Duke that will certainly kind of haunt the league and kind of get in the way of all of these things. That the league is trying to accomplish from a branding and from a perception standpoint. So those were the main games of the weekend. Let's do this. Let's go to our interview, our next guest with Hayden Howerton here in just a moment. But we'll talk about Stanford at North Carolina, and then we'll talk about Florida State at Clemson, what it means for the coaching carousel with Mike Norvell losing that one 24-10 on the road. But do want to remind you guys as well to check out our friends at Sportsmo. Sportsmo is a revolutionary app that can help you support your favorite college football team and athletics department. Go to sportsmo.org to download the app today. Sportsmo is, like I said, a revolutionary idea here to help you use micro donations and pledges to support your college football team. And guess what? They are tax deductible. So learn more about Sportsmo at sportsmo.org. Check out the video to learn more about our friends over at Sportsmo.
Sportsmo lets you make a more direct impact on the game because it lets you, the fans, fund your favorite college football teams in a straightforward way. In a you win and I'll give way. In a I need you to show me your running game is alive and then I'll donate way. These real-time tax-deductible microfunds lead to impact your team can feel. Every cent you send mixes with every drop of sweat they put in. Form your squad. Boost your friends when a play comes through. A new way to follow the game. And cha-ching, your favorite team. So what do you say, difference makers? Ready to power the play? Sportsmo. Download today. Let's smo.
Very excited to welcome our next guest to All Access AM, Hayden Howerton, former SMU offensive lineman and co-host of the On the Pony Express podcast covering SMU. Hayden, thanks for the time this morning. Happy Monday. It is a great time to be watching the SMU Mustangs do their thing coming off that win against Miami. There was no letdown in Chestnut Hill. 45-13 SMU takes down Boston College, and now sitting squarely in this race of all these one-loss teams in ACC play.
Yeah, Billy, thanks for having me on again this morning. But you're looking at this SMU team that all of a sudden is back in the running for the ACC Championship. It's been really fun to watch the highs and lows, and I guess that's what makes being a fan so fun. But SMU went on a run. They go beat Clemson. They lose to Wake Forest, and now they've ripped off 2 straight wins over Miami, and they go beat Boston College in a really game that they controlled from start to finish. And I look at this SMU team, who might be the worst opening drive team in the country. You go 3 and out with a sack on the opening drive, but other than that, this offense was rolling. Kevin Jennings, 16 for 32, 326 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. His first career back-to-back 300 yards passing game. And this is a guy that just continues to get better for the SMU Mustangs. But you pair that with Yamir Knight, 7 receptions, 162 yards, career high for Knight, but also the highest single game total for an SMU receiver this year. You pair that with a really nice day on the ground as this SMU team rushed for 222 a week after rushing for -2 in regulation against the Miami Hurricanes. But you saw TJ Harden and crew really set the tone at the running back position to be able to go out and get it done on Saturday against Boston College.
You know, SMU's defense playing well as well. They've got the ability to really kind of give up yards, but also get off the field. 2 of 15 was BC on third downs. And then, of course, the Mustangs forced 4 turnovers on the day. This is not a win that is going to get you any sort of huge amount of praise, which honestly, you know, you had 2 samples right here as far as Notre Dame playing Boston College and having to escape with a win, and then SMU going up there and really beating the brakes off of BC. I don't know if SMU's really ever got a shot to get back truly into the top 25 by the end of the season. Maybe they can if they can win out, at least, before they would have a chance to play in the ACC Championship. But they're playing a really high level of football as a whole right now, and they are kind of glossed over in the conversation around the ACC Championship. Now, we've seen in this league, things can change overnight. UVA, look what happened. Chandler Morris got hurt, and they fall to Wake Forest. Obviously, Louisville was in kind of prime position to be one of those teams. Now they're going to have to fight for their life and are really behind the 8 ball to get to Charlotte. But SMU, the way they're playing right now, if they can continue that, will have them, with a very good chance to win out the rest of the way.
And you look at the difference where you're going to compare Notre Dame to SMU, essentially. And the difference in those two games were winning in the trenches. SMU's defensive line, 8 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. 4 sacks by Isaiah Smith. We call him Turbo on our side. But career day for him. Tied the SMU single-game sack record with 4 on the day. And only one of those 3 guys, Isaiah Smith, Justin Lawler, and Luke Johnson, only one of those guys did it against a Power 4 opponent. So career day for Isaiah Smith. But you pair that with Ahmad Moses, and we talked about him last week after he had 2 interceptions against Miami. 2 fumble recoveries for Ahmad Moses on Saturday afternoon against Boston College. The defense is one of those things that they're going to give up yardage. They give up 390 yards on the game. But last I checked, the scoreboard doesn't count yardages, it counts points. So another sub 25-point performance for this SMU defense is going to allow this offense, who is very explosive. They had 13 explosive plays on the day for SMU's offense, that they're going to be able to take over some of these ball games as long as defense can do their job, keep them in it, and keep kicking Boston College, frankly, while they're down. And SMU was able to escape in a really fun game where you got a lot of backup players in late in the game. And now SMU's starters are going to get a week off. You're going to get a bye week, and you have really an extra quarter, thanks to the blowout against Boston College, to get your legs back, get fresh before facing Louisville at Ford Stadium in 2 weeks.
And that game will be a huge opportunity for this program to really show just the consistency, and really the consistency in November. And that's where you're seeing some of these teams that have injuries or have issues or whatever pop up in the time of year that everybody remembers. And as you're looking to close out your chances to get to the ACC Championship, we're going to learn a ton, obviously, about the directions of some of these programs. Does Louisville kind of fall off? Does UVA kind of, now that the straw has kind of broken the camel's back, they've played with fire for many weeks in a row, that losing that game finally puts them now among the teams with that one loss. You're going to learn a lot about how some of these teams respond. And there's a lot of talented rosters. I think that's being glossed over a little bit. Look, I think the SEC at the top is a very, very, very elite conference. I mean, Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, among those teams playing really elite rosters at a very high level right now. But when you look at the ACC, it immediately kind of gets talked about as, it's just a bad league beating up on themselves. I don't think so. I think these are very good rosters. You look at Louisville's roster, you look at Miami's roster, you look at Cal's roster, and the job that they've done to get them back to bowl eligibility. Wake Forest, UVA, they've played the schedules that they've kind of played and have been able to benefit from that. But, SMU has a roster that, despite a lot of turnover, it went to the college football playoff last year. Clemson has a good roster. Florida State has a good roster. These aren't teams that can't be competitive. We just haven't really seen too many examples of these head-to-head matchups. Really, the Big 12 is the one that won a lot, kind of got the talking points, so to speak. But when it comes to some of these matchups with the ACC and some of these bigger conferences, I think they're not getting credit that these are good rosters that are just in a pretty competitive league right now.
Yeah, and when you talk about UVA and Wake Forest, and as you alluded to, played a little bit of weaker schedules in comparison to everybody else around the league. Look, UVA gets Chandler Morris, and he's able to perform at a high level that he really hadn't had that much success at his previous schools. He had enough success, but not at the level that we had seen so far. So obviously losing him with the hit to the head and neck area in the second quarter, it really hurts Virginia. But ultimately, I have not been very high on the Cavaliers. I think they have benefited. I think they've escaped. If anything, I think their non-conference loss to NC State Wolfpack, I don't even know how you can justify having them as one of the top-ranked teams in the league when they've already lost to a team in this league. And I certainly had the game against Duke that they have coming up penciled in as one that I think the Blue Devils are going to come out on top. I know that the Duke Blue Devils just lost to the UConn Huskies, but Duke is a more talented and, frankly, I think a better coached football team. Now, did I anticipate Wake Forest going on the road to Charlottesville and taking out Virginia? Absolutely not. But it does help SMU, as our loss now to Wake Forest stings a little bit less. But anyway, Wake Forest ends up, they're bowl eligible now, as I did not anticipate that. They had less than 250 yards of offense against Virginia and are still able to pull out a win.
When we watch some of these teams, Georgia Tech was on a bye this week. They had a chance to reset, but Georgia Tech's going to get a chance to play Pitt. Pitt hosts Notre Dame this weekend. I think this is look, I don't know if I'm going to pick Pitt to outright beat Notre Dame just yet, but I really like Pitt's chances in that game to have it be competitive. And College Game Day going to be on hand. A good chance for Pat Narduzzi and this program to showcase Mason Heinschel, one of the great stories in this conference. This game between Pitt and Notre Dame, I think, is going to be an all-out war. It would not shock me at all if they came out with the win. Georgia Tech heads up to Boston College, 3:30 game for them on the ACC network this weekend. Those are two teams that have that grit. They need to kind of show it over these next couple of weeks if they obviously want to get to Charlotte. But those two teams are ones that really kind of come to mind right now as having the opportunity to show, hey, yes, Georgia Tech lost to NC State. NC State's another one that I didn't mention earlier. That roster is a good roster. Yeah. They just have not been able to get everything out of that roster. I'm convinced if there was a change in coaching, kind of better situation there from that perspective, they would find a way to be a 10-win team with this type of roster that they have. I think CJ Bailey is a tough quarterback to defend, and Georgia Tech's going to have to defend Mason Heinschel in a couple weeks. So somebody's going to prove somebody right or wrong there, but this league is just pretty competitive, and some of the teams that were kind of floating around in the middle there, the Miami, Georgia Tech, Pitt, didn't necessarily get enough credit for kind of what they had built overall and the early season wins. I think that's the thing that's really kind of driving people a lot of like nuts, the separation between Notre Dame and Miami.
Well, you look at Pitt. I think Pitt's the hottest team in the country right now. 5 straight wins. If they are able to win the next 3, they find themselves in Charlotte, and then they end up winning the ACC, they would be one of the premier teams in the playoffs, riding what would be a 9-game win streak at that point. They would be really hard to take down, whether they get a bye or not. Maybe they're hosting a game at the former Heinz Field. I'm trying to remember what they call it now. But ultimately, the Pittsburgh Panthers, the job that they've done the last 2 seasons of being able to make a lot of noise in this league. Last year, they rolled into Ford Stadium as a highly ranked team. SMU was able to get the better of them in that one, and they kind of wheels fell off after that game. But they're able to bounce back this year. They're able to be competitive with just a few games to go. And this league is more fun when it's this competitive. And in the years where it was, all right, obviously it's going to be Florida State, Clemson, or, Clemson, Louisville, you're getting these teams that are just obviously at the top and they're going to boat race everybody else. That's fine for the league as far as getting someone into the former 4-team playoff. But now that there's 12 in the era of the NIL, in the era of the transfer portal, it has never been more competitive in college football, and the ACC embraces that.
Yeah, no question. Great points there. And look, Hayden, we look forward to having you back on All Access AM again soon to break it down as SMU is squarely in the race for the ACC Championship. Hayden, have a great Monday. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Billy.
Appreciate Hayden Howerton for stopping in with us. Of course, one of the good guys out there. I hope you guys enjoy getting his knowledge. Bounced around a little bit in the NFL and, of course, started over 50 games for SMU during his career. So he's seen a lot of ball. And I've seen a lot of ball. The way North Carolina has bounced back from their early season start is starting to become impressive. 4-5 on the year now, 2-3 in ACC play after a 20-15 win over Stanford at home. Stanford falls to 3-7 overall, 2-5 in ACC play. Not going to spend too much time here because both of these teams are not out of bowl eligibility as far as North Carolina goes. I think Stanford's out with only 2 games remaining, but North Carolina has at Wake Forest. They could really spoil all the good vibes around Wake. And remember, last time Wake got a big win, in a sense, over SMU, they went on the road and got shellacked by Florida State. North Carolina heads to Wake Forest this weekend with a chance to kind of continue this little streak. They've now won 2 in a row. Then North Carolina plays Duke in a rivalry game, and then at NC State. So not out of the realm of possibility that Bill Belichick could have his team bowling. With 3 wins over the last with 3 wins over the last few regular season games, Bill Belichick could have his team at 7-5. Who would have thought that? Now, does it happen? I don't know. Pretty tall task. You've got Wake, you've got Duke. Those games seem kind of tough to envision them winning, but the way North Carolina is winning these last 2 games, playing really strong defense. Again, Syracuse doesn't really have an offense right now. Stanford struggles as well. But remember, this was a team early in the year that just was so bad overall, just disorganized, and they've really started to figure it out here. So I don't know what Bill Belichick's future holds, but he's got his team playing some pretty good football here late in the season. They've won 2 in a row. Speaking of not winning 2 in a row, speaking of 2 months, which has been the time that it's been since Clemson won a home game, that streak is now over with a 24-10 win over Florida State on Saturday. The Noles fall to 4-5, 1-5 in ACC play. Clemson, 4-5 overall, 3-4 in ACC play. They've got 3 games to go: Louisville, Furman, and South Carolina. 3 matchups, so they've got 3 opportunities to get there. Maybe they can get there with a win on the road at Louisville. That would be something. They can get one step closer, and then, of course, you'd have Furman the next week, which you'd assume they could get through and get to 6-5 at that point, and then see what happens against South Carolina. But they are not in any sort of contention for the ACC Championship. But I know this one, you can tell it meant a lot for Dabo Swinney and his crew to get this one over the hump and get this win. It wasn't pretty. It was 18-7 at half. It was a ball game. But Cade Klubnik, efficient, 20 of 27, 221 yards, a touchdown. Adam Randall didn't really do too much on the ground. And Tommy Castellanos, kind of had to do it all himself once again. But Deuce Robinson had another big game for FSU. So there's a lot to like about Clemson's chances now to get to bowl eligibility. But here for Florida State, now you're staring down the barrel of Virginia Tech, NC State, and Florida to close out your season. You could get to bowl eligibility, but it also it's a tall task there as well. And for Mike Norvell, Pete Nakos on 3 National Reporter did drop the latest on him on on3.com, our partners over there, and said that talks are starting to heat back up about what the future holds for Mike Norvell. $59 million is what it would take to buy him out. Then you've got to do the staff. You've got to invest in a new coaching staff. I mean, that is $100 million type of investment, which, look, this team is this team, and it has gotten a little bit better, but they've got to really reevaluate how they do some things there. And I think this is where, and I talked about this a little bit earlier in the show, you really need these coaches and particularly these administrators to look at these football programs as NFL organizations. You have contracts, you have salary cap, you have deals, marketing deals or NIL deals or whatever the deals are. And you have these coaches that have so much at play already to manage. There needs to be a little bit of a change in some places with how they manage these programs. And I think Florida State is now getting to the point where it's such a big pressure cooker. The expectations are high. The support is generally there. They have brand new facilities and things like that. But you wonder if some of that pressure cooker, kind of like, and I'm not trying to compare Florida State to A&M here, But I think over the years, the pressure cooker of A&M has impacted their team. And you've got to find the right guy to block all that out and handle it. And that's a head coaching decision. And Mike Norvell has done that at times in Tallahassee, but there's also a lot more that is happening now in this world. So I think there's a lot more to solve at FSU than just pay Mike Norvell to go away. And I think he's a good enough coach to get them back. They've jumped up a little bit compared to last year, of course, but it's still a big, tall ask for him to get them where they need to go. So I don't know what's going to happen over the next few weeks, but it's going to be intriguing. One last thing here, Bill Belichick, classic fashion here. He's not worried about bowl eligibility. He said, quote, "Right now, we're going to think about how we can correct our mistakes from the Stanford game, how to get better, and talk about the things we did well, the things we didn't do well, and then we'll go on to Wake Forest. Just let everything else take care of itself." That's good stuff. Maybe they should have done that all year. I kind of think there was a lot of other things going on around that program as well. We switch back to North Carolina, though, because we're going to finish with some hoops talk here. Big injury news in the ACC. Seth Trimble announces a broken forearm, and they'll have surgery for him. Captain of UNC. You just hate to hear this. And he injures his left forearm during a workout, and now undergoing surgery. No timetable for his return, but just you really feel for him. He was one of the key guys coming back for this UNC roster. Had him averaging 14.5 points per game early this season, shooting 44%, had average 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists. They're 2-0 on the year. So we'll see how North Carolina does without him, but some early adversity for this Tar Heels roster and how they respond will say a lot. So thinking of Seth Trimble, he was a good guy. I've met him a couple times and knew him in recruiting. So certainly one that we're all hoping for the best. So that is some news on the good side for UNC. Caleb Wilson is really starting to show why he was so highly touted. 24 points, 9 of 12 from the field against number 19 Kansas, as UNC got the win, 87-74. Massive win for UNC to get back on the right track early in this season after a season of ups and downs last year, and some changes kind of around the program and structurally and investment-wise. This is what UNC basketball wanted when they kind of doubled down on the Hubert Davis era and gave him different resources and things like that. So big night for him. Duke's Cam Boozer's already impressing as well. So a lot of talent in the freshman ranks in this ACC conference, as always. And do want to remind you guys, we're partners with the Field of 68. So Field of 68 is really in-depth basketball coverage as well. So make sure you check out their work over at the On3 Rivals Network. They do a great job over there. Love all their podcasts as well. And then Kayshawn Pryor did return against Jackson State and got back into the action and was able to get in there and start making a name for himself again after tearing his ACL last year. He's kind of a fan favorite, just the looks and everything of him. He was able to add 6 points, 3 boards, and a steal in 16 minutes. Was just kind of worked in and looked a little rusty at times, missed all 3 of his three-point attempts. But this is a big piece for Louisville and what they hope to do over the course of this season. Very high expectations there. And he forms, one of the top front courts in the ACC when he's out there and when he's healthy. So we'll be keeping a close eye on Kayshawn Pryor to see how he develops and gets back to it. Kentucky heads to Louisville this week on a 7:00 game on ESPN Tuesday night. That's a huge matchup this week, early in the week. And then the rest of the games, for the most part, SMU takes a step up in competition against Murray State that same night, same tip time. Florida State at Florida, 6 p.m. SEC Network over there for that one. Wake Forest at Michigan, Duke all the way at Army. They go up to West Point. So for the most part, kind of a fun Tuesday night if you're looking to get into some hoops. And again, we're going to start covering it. Do want to give a shout out. The son of Carmelo Anthony making a statement for himself. Keon Anthony stepping up with 19 points on Saturday against Delaware State. He opened his Syracuse career with 15. He's shooting the ball really, really well overall to start his career, shooting 66% from the field. It's early. The competition level isn't great, but I know this means a lot to him. Was reading some of the content about him going into this one from Field of 68, Sam Lance over there. And just a really cool story, obviously, about him arriving at Syracuse and kind of understanding just how big of a deal that it is that his dad, Carmelo Anthony, brought to that program and really did for so many years there, with his All-American and national championship and all of those things. So he was on the verge of being a 5-star prospect, but he's playing like a high-level 1 right now for the Orange early on. So hope you guys enjoyed this edition of All Access AM. Once again, do want to remind you guys, check out our sponsors. Security National Bank, securitynational.bank is where you can find more information about how they can help you on your personal or business or both journey and help you improve there. And of course, check out Sportsmo. You can download the app in our podcast episode description. Look, everyone, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Have a great week. Next time you'll see me, I'll be down in Florida. So we'll see what the backdrop is like for our shows Wednesday and Thursday, 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern time. We'll talk some ACC basketball as well as preview this weekend's games. As look, we are coming down into the thick of it as far as the race goes for the ACC Championship spots, and it only just got wilder this weekend. So hope you guys have a great start to your week, and we'll catch you next time on All Access AM. I'm Billy Embody. Please hit the like, subscribe, follow buttons wherever you catch us at All Access AM. Check us out on our YouTube page as well. So hope you guys enjoyed this edition, and we'll